Hold on to your seats, folks, because what we're about to uncover could destroy everything you thought you knew about love and hip-hop. That's right. The secrets, the lies, and the betrayal behind the scenes are about to be laid bare like never before. What if I told you the cast's most shocking scandal is not something you've seen on screen? No, it's happening right now, and it's far worse than anything you could have imagined. From backstabbing cast members to network chaos, things are spiraling out of control faster than a speeding bullet. So, what happened? Well, let's just say when Kirk Frost got a whiff of what was really happening behind the scenes, the entire production went up in flames. Rashida, once the face of calm and composure, is now caught in the eye of a public storm that could cost her everything. And don't even get me started on Mendices. He's not just furious, he's ready to burn down the whole operation. Is this the end of love and hip-hop? Or is this just the beginning of a much darker, more dangerous truth? You'll want to stick around for this because we've got leaked documents, explosive audio, and insider reports that will change everything. This isn't just gossip. This is a network meltdown that could shatter a legacy, and trust me, you won't want to miss how it all unfolds. The glitz, the glam, the drama, love, and hip-hop was once the epitome of reality TV. Fans tuned in every week to catch a glimpse of their favorite stars navigating love, betrayal, and their wild personal lives. But behind the camera, things were far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. What if I told you that the scandal brewing right now could change everything you thought you knew about the show, its cast, and its creators? First things first, let's talk about Kirk Frost. Yes, the man who's built an entire career on being the bad boy of love and hip-hop Atlanta. You'd think after all these years, the guy would have learned a thing or two about loyalty, especially to his own family. But apparently, Kirk's loyalty only stretches as far as the paycheck. The whispers began weeks ago, but now they've exploded like a viral TikTok video. And what's worse? It's not just about his marriage to Rashida. It's about the network exploiting the couple for ratings, creating storylines that are more scripted than you'd ever want to admit. Kirk Frost never thought this would happen. Rashida was supposed to be the stable one, the one who kept it all together until she realized that behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Kirk had been using his personal life as a public spectacle. But when the curtain finally fell, it wasn't just his family's personal issues that were exposed. The entire network's dirty secrets were laid bare, and fans were left with more questions than answers. What happened behind the scenes? Let's break it down. Kirk had just wrapped up filming a major storyline about his business struggles and marital tension with Rashida. This was supposed to be his redemption arc, the kind of storyline that would make fans root for him again. After years of cheating scandals, infidelity, and being the villain on the show, this season was supposed to be his big comeback. But instead of redemption, what he got was betrayal from the very people who were supposed to support him, the producers. The shocking reality was that Kirk's storyline was never meant to have a happy ending. Instead, the producers used his personal life for exploitative drama, and when the ratings started slipping, they ditched him. That's right, Kirk was left in the dark, blindsided by the network he trusted. Rashida, ever the professional, tried to keep the peace. But behind closed doors, she was tired of the never-ending drama, tired of her life being televised, and most of all, tired of being manipulated by the people who promised them both fame and fortune. But it wasn't just Kirk's personal fallout. The entire cast was left reeling. Mendices, who had only just made his grand comeback to the show after a series of legal battles and family issues, was furious. Word on the street is, he called Mona Scott Young herself, demanding clarity. But Mona, in typical Mona fashion, dodged his calls and left him in the dark. This wasn't just a quick cancel situation. The show's entire future was at stake, and all the cast members could do was sit in silence, waiting for their fates to be sealed by a network that had used them for years. Let's pause for a second and think about what was really happening here. Mendices, a man who fought tooth and nail to repair his image, was facing a massive setback. His storyline was heating up, especially with his growing tension with Yandy Smith, his wife, and the Queen of LHH. Yandy, torn between loyalty to her family and the network's demands, was falling apart emotionally. She was devastated. This show had given her everything: her platform, her business empire, her public identity. But now, with the network throwing everything into chaos, she didn't know what was left for her. Could she trust the people who had made her a star? Or had the game finally caught up to her? As these whispers spread, the network's handling of the situation became a topic of public debate. Anonymous sources started leaking information about how the cast found out about their possible cancellation. According to a confidential insider, cast members were finding out the same way the public did, through rumors and leaked memos. How is that possible? No official communication, no closure, just chaos behind the scenes. The production team was even reassigning crew members and pulling scenes that had already been filmed. What was going on? Why was no one getting any updates? Why was Mona, the very face of the show, so quiet? Rumors started swirling that Mona Scott Young, after years of building her empire on scandal, was now facing the consequences of creating a show built on fake drama. The producers were caught between a rock and a hard place, scrambling to maintain some form of control over the increasingly messy situation. But there was one thing: they couldn't control the leaks. In the midst of this turmoil, Kirk Frost allegedly stormed onto set, accusing producers of using his personal life as a pawn. He reportedly yelled, "I gave you everything, and now you throw me away when things get tough." Kirk felt completely betrayed. His marriage to Rashida, the very foundation of his character arc, was used as cheap drama. And now it seemed like everyone, from Mendices to Yandy, was feeling the same betrayal. This wasn't just about Kirk Frost anymore. This was about everyone's future. And if the network could drop them like this, what was next? By now, the tension had reached a boiling point. Yandy went live on Instagram, trying to explain her feelings, her confusion, and the stress of it all. Her post was filled with emotional exhaustion, and fans could sense that the truth was finally coming to light. She was devastated. Her identity, her legacy, had been built on this show, and now it seemed like everything was crumbling right before her eyes. The final straw came when the leaked memo surfaced, a document that seemingly confirmed the end of Love and Hip Hop as we knew it. Fans were freaking out. No more reunions, no more spin-offs, and definitely no more of the stories they had followed for years. But that's when the real scandal came into play. Was the cancellation of Love and Hip Hop due to ratings? Was it the scandals behind the scenes? Or was there something much darker lurking in the shadows? This is where things get interesting. Anonymous sources began dropping bombshells. According to one source close to production, the real reason for the cancellation was tied to legal threats, lawsuits, and internal issues that no one outside the industry could have guessed. Mona Scott Young, who had always thrived in the world of scandal, was now facing the very thing she had built her empire on: the consequences of fake drama. But the cast had been left in the dark, watching their livelihoods disappear. And then, in the middle of it all, the explosive moment, the final confrontation between Kirk and Rashida. The fight that no one saw coming, but everyone was talking about. After all these years, was Kirk Frost's redemption arc just a myth? Or was the truth even darker than anyone could imagine? Cameras. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, Mendices entered the fray. The man who had been through the fire and back, who had fought for his second chance, was now facing a nuclear fallout. Sources close to him reported that he was not only livid about the cancellation, but he was outraged by the lack of communication from the producers. With his storyline heating up, especially with his troubled relationship with Yandy, he was determined to fix his image, to show the world that he was more than just a guy who got caught in the crossfire of family drama. Yandy Smith was not immune to the tension either. The iconic couple who had built a relationship in front of the cameras were now fracturing behind the scenes. Yandy's loyalty to the show had been tested over the years, but now it was breaking down completely. Her personal and professional worlds were colliding, and she found herself caught in the middle of a storm of allegations, backstabbing, and public scrutiny. What made it worse for Yandy was the feeling of betrayal. She had spent years building an empire on the back of the show. And now, with the network's future uncertain, she feared that everything she had worked for was slipping through her fingers. Her personal relationship with Mendices, the man she had fought for, was also in jeopardy. The tension between the castmates was palpable. and rumors of fights and heated arguments between them had already begun circulating. Mendices felt like Yandy wasn't truly on his side, and Yandy felt like Mendices was more loyal to the show than to their family. And then there was the explosive audio leak that no one saw coming. Rumors of an internal meeting with Mona Scott Young and a network executive were circulating like wildfire. The leaked clip, muffled but enough to make an impact, confirmed the worst fears of the cast. In the tape, Mona Scott Young could be heard saying, "We can't keep covering this mess." It was clear that the show had become too chaotic, too filled with drama, to keep going. In the eyes of many, this wasn't just about canceling a show. This was about the whole system collapsing. This was about people being used for profit, their personal lives exploited for the sake of entertainment, and no one being left to take the fall. The leaked audio was like a final nail in the coffin. Fans exploded on social media, dissecting every word, every pause, trying to figure out if this meant the end of love and hip-hop forever. But the chaos didn't end there. Insiders began revealing more shocking details. Apparently, the network had been under intense pressure for months. Sources close to the show reported that legal threats, internal feuds, and public scandals had put the network in an impossible position. One insider claimed that the final episode would feature an announcement no one had seen coming. The network was preparing for a restructuring, possibly even a complete reboot of the franchise. But the truth was darker than anyone expected. As the final episode of the season drew near, tensions were running so high that the cast could barely speak to each other without the air feeling like it would explode. Rashida and Kirk, once the golden couple, were now barely speaking to one another, torn apart by the reality that the show had manipulated them. Mendices and Yandy, who had once been portrayed as the perfect couple, were now arguing constantly, with Mendices accusing Yandy of being too loyal to Mona, and Yandy accusing Mendices of being too loyal to the show. The cracks in their relationship, which had once been barely noticeable, were now in full view. Meanwhile, the production crew was caught in the middle, with one anonymous source revealing that the situation on set had gotten so tense that physical fights had broken out between cast members. The network, desperate to save face, began pulling scenes from editing and trying to hide the chaos that was unfolding. Private altercations, legal threats, and screaming matches were now the backbone of the show's final days. The last episode was supposed to be a climactic moment, but it was clear that it had turned into a final act of betrayal for everyone involved. As the show neared its final days, the cast and crew were all being hit with the harsh reality that nothing would be the same. The scandalous rumors about what really happened behind the scenes of love and hip-hop were intensifying, and fans were left with more questions than answers. But the truth was coming out, and soon enough, everything would be exposed for what it really was. The explosive fallout was only just beginning, and by the time everything was revealed, there would be no turning back. The final curtain had come down, but it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. As the world continued to speculate about the cancellation of love and hip-hop, what no one knew was that the most shocking revelation was yet to come. The final blow to the franchise wasn't going to come from the whispers on social media or the leaked memos from the network. It was about to come straight from the heart of the storm itself. With the final episode looming, the tension among the cast and crew was unbearable. The last scene was set to be emotional, wreckage a bombshell announcement that would leave the fans gasping for air. However, what the audience didn't know was that Mona Scott Young, the queen of reality TV drama, had already made her peace with the inevitable. She had manipulated the chaos, used it for ratings, but now the game had turned on her. What was left to save? Behind the scenes, a final production meeting took place, a meeting that would determine the fate of the entire franchise. Insiders claimed that Mona and the network executives were no longer in control of the narrative. The show was shifting. The controversies and feuds had gotten too out of hand, and the damage was too deep to cover up. One source, who was present during the meeting, reported that it felt more like an interrogation than a creative discussion. "I don't know how much longer we can keep this up," Mona allegedly said, her voice trembling slightly as she acknowledged that the show was in disarray. The network, according to insiders, had already begun exploring the possibility of rebranding, but that didn't come without a price. "The show has gotten too toxic," one anonymous crew member said. We can't just keep ignoring what's happening off camera. It wasn't just the internal chaos that threatened the show. It was the fact that the network had long since realized that the model of exploitation they'd used for years was unsustainable. The viewership had started to dwindle, and with it, so had the financial backing. Advertisers were no longer willing to support a reality show that was making headlines, for all the wrong reasons. The cracks were already showing in the once invincible empire of love and hip-hop. As the meeting unfolded, the reality of the situation began to hit harder than any explosive episode. The cast members weren't just being cut loose, they were being made disposable. Some, like Kirk and Rashida, were finally realizing that the network had used them for drama, without ever truly caring about their future. "They've been throwing us under the bus for years," Kirk allegedly said in a heated exchange, "and now they want to blame us for the mess." Rashida, on the other hand, was quietly breaking down in the corner of the room. The woman who had built her brand on love and hip-hop felt that she had given it everything, and now it was all slipping away. But what hurt the most wasn't the cancellation. It was the fact that no one cared about their family anymore. They were just pawns in a game of TV ratings. Mendices, ever the determined fighter, wasn't willing to go down quietly. After receiving yet another vague response from Mona about the state of the show, he reportedly demanded answers. The tension between him and Yandy, once a symbol of resilience and partnership, was at an all-time high. Sources claimed that Mendices was already considering his exit from the show if things didn't change. But his betrayal of Yandy, whether real or imagined, was only making matters worse. Meanwhile, Yandy was trying to hold it together. The emotional toll of the entire situation was evident as she began to break down. With her career and personal life on the line, Yandy's loyalty was being questioned not just by the fans but by her own castmates. The unspoken resentment between her and Mendices was growing. Rumors swirled that they had been at odds for months, and the show had only amplified the strain on their relationship. The growing division within the cast was becoming a crisis that